Hello, and thank you for tuning into Tapestry Thursday, your midday manna, providing you with the biblical principles in your wellness care. Today's topic is ancient grains. I will reference Ezekiel chapter 4 and John chapter 12, specifically Ezekiel 4:9 and John 12:24. But I would recommend and highly suggest that you read the entire chapter of Ezekiel 4 and John 12. Ancient grains in the Bible primarily consisted of wheat, barley, and spelt, which served as daily survival food, ritual offerings, and central symbols of divine provision across the ancient Near East. Wheat was a premium staple of ancient grains. It was the most highly valued cereal grain in biblical times. It was grown in rich regional valleys like Jezreel and Samaria. It represented luxury, wealth, and agricultural prosperity. Fine wheat flour was used for special sacrifices and offerings given to the priests. It required good soil and careful cultivation compared to tougher crops. In Scripture, wheat frequently symbolized life and spiritual nourishment. Jesus famously likened his own body and sacrifice to a kernel of wheat falling to the earth to bear much fruit. Barley was the second major grain of ancient Israel. It matured faster than wheat and tolerated poor, dry soils where wheat could not survive. Because it was cheap and plentiful, barley formed the daily bread of the poor. Judges and historical accounts often associated barley bread with humble, unassuming strength. The barley harvest arrived first in early spring around the time of Passover. Jesus used humble barley loaves in his miraculous feeding of the 5,000. Spelt is a hardy ancient wheat variety mentioned in passages like Exodus and Ezekiel. It features a tough outer husk that protects the grain from pests. Emmer wheat, closely related to spelt, was a dominant early crop across Egypt and the southern Levant. It was frequently stored in large government and temple granaries during periods of drought. These primitive wheats contain robust nutritional profiles. People ground them on stone hand mills to create coarse, wholesome meals for daily flatbreads. Millet is explicitly noted in Prophet Ezekiel's unique bread recipe. It grew well in dry conditions and added variety to local diets. Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 9 instructs the prophet to combine wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt into a single storage jar to bake bread during times of siege. Nutritional science shows this specific biblical mix provides complete plant proteins. Ancient bakers utilized these diverse crops to maximize sustenance and stretch limited food supplies. The agrarian rhythm of Israel turned entirely on the spring grain harvest. Barley was reaped first in April, followed weeks later by the wheat harvest ending at Pentecost. Farmers reaped stalks by hand using sickles. They brought the cut crop to stone threshing floors where oxen or wooden sledges crushed the heads to loosen the edible seeds. Workers then winnowed the mixture by tossing it into the air. The wind blew away the light chaff, leaving behind clean grain ready for storage or immediate roasting. Grains were consumed in multiple forms, including fresh green ears, parched kernels, or coarse ground flour. Parched grain served as a quick travel ration for soldiers and travelers. Most grain was milled using pared stone kerns operated by hand. The resulting flour retained the nutrient-rich bran, differing sharply from modern, highly refined white flour. Women baked this dough on hot stone griddles or inside clay dome ovens. These quick cooking flatbreads formed the absolute foundation of every single meal. Control over grain stores meant the difference between life and death during regional droughts. Genesis records Joseph saving Egypt and surrounding nations by storing surplus grain. Nations traded massive quantities of wheat and barley as international currency. King Solomon paid foreign allies in Tyre with thousands of cores and wheat annually. The site of Jerusalem's sacred temple was famously purchased by King David at a wheat threshing floor. Grain production thus anchored both secular survival and holy worship. The Mosaic law established specific grain offerings presented to God. These unfermented flour or roasted grain gifts express gratitude for the earth's yield. Leaven and honey were strictly excluded from burnt grain offerings on the altar. Salt, representing an eternal covenant and preservation, was always required. First fruits of the barley and wheat harvest were brought to the sanctuary. These ceremonies consecrated the entire crop and acknowledged God as the true provider of the land. Grain heaps in biblical poetry describe overwhelming abundance, fertility, and divine blessing. A woman hiding spies under scattered grain illustrates how common the crop was. Jesus used agriculture grain cycles to explain spiritual truths about death, resurrection, and judgment. Wheat represented the righteous, while weeds symbolized the unrighteous. The phrase daily bread anchors human dependence directly on divine grace. Bread made from those ancient seeds sustained physical life and prefigured eternal spiritual realities. Some of the ways ancient grains are used today, primarily as nutritional superfoods. Some use it as gluten-free alternatives and sustainable agriculture staples. There are daily breakfast bowls and porridges, such as quinoa and Emmer. They boil it as a hot cereal. Some may top it with fresh fruits, some nuts, and a plant-based milk. And this will give you a high protein start to your morning. There is Einkorn and Spelt. It's used for rustic breads and pastries. You can hand mill them and use some fresh berries at home for fresh bread. There are Farro and Freekeh that can be used for soups, like vegetable soups, a hearty vegetable soup. You can chilled grain salads. You can mix with herbs and vinaigrettes. Then you can also make a chewy texture replacement for processed pasta. You can incorporate quinoa as a complete 9 amino acid protein source. You can blend grain flours into vegan veggie burger patties. The ancient grains also support meat-free and vegetarian diets. Ancient grains are minimally processed whole foods, as I mentioned previously, such as quinoa, einkorn, and teff, that have remained largely unchanged for thousands of years. Ancient grains are a group of cereal grains and pseudo-cereals that look much the same today as they did thousands of years ago. Unlike modern wheat, rice, or corn, they have avoided heavy industrial selective breeding and genetic modification. These resilient crops served as the primary daily fuel for early civilization across Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. The Whole Grain Council notes that while all whole grains have deep roots, this specific marketing and culinary label helps bring forgotten heirloom crops back to modern store shelves. Quinoa is a South American pseudo-cereal celebrated as a complete plant protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. Farro and Spelt are ancient wheat varieties offering a chewy texture and robust, nutty flavor ideal for hearty soups and grain bowls, as I've mentioned before. So these are just some of the key varieties. Teff is a tiny grain native to Ethiopia, packed with iron and calcium, traditionally ground to make spongy flatbread. Some of the nutritional advantages are because the seeds and grasses are less processed, they retain more of their natural outer bran layers and inner germ. They provide a rich source of dietary fiber, which supports healthy digestion and keeps you feeling full longer. They also supply essential vitamins and minerals like magnesium, zinc, and B vitamins that are often stripped from refined white flour. Eating these unrefined choices helps lower the risk of chronic conditions like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Many options such as quinoa, millet, and amaranth are naturally gluten-free, making them safe for people with celiac disease or gluten sensitivities. Their complex carbohydrates digest slowly, preventing sharp spikes in blood sugar levels. These ancient grains often require fewer chemical fertilizers and synthetic pesticides to thrive in difficult soil. Many varieties tolerate extreme heat, poor soil quality, and drought conditions much better than modern commodity crops. This climate resilience makes them an important tool for sustainable agriculture and global food security. Home cooks easily substitute ancient grains in everyday recipes by using them as a direct base in place of white rice or pasta. Nutty grains like millet and sorghum can even be popped into a crunchy, wholesome snack. Flour meals from Einkorn, Spelt, or Teff bring unique, earthy flavors to artisan breads, pancakes, and cookies. So using high fiber barley and millet, it would help keep you on the low glycemic meal planning. swapping out some of your traditional starches with Teff will keep you at a steady energy release rate. And it'll also help you manage diabetes and insulin sensitivity through the beta-glucans. Good swap. I know they have locally here some commercial brewing and distilling in the states of Minnesota, but I'm sure they're all throughout the United States. But some breweries I have heard have started to replace their malt or barley for the ancient barley varieties for the craft beers. They're brewing gluten-free with replacing it with sorghum and millet. So some of the nutritional advantages, because the seeds and grains are less processed, they retain more of their natural outer bran, and they're more healthier for a healthier lifestyle because it's more of a unrefined eating choice. For me, currently what I am trying out or have kind of transitioned to the latest ancient grain is Kamut. That's Kamut. Or it's also known as Khorasan wheat. That's Khorasan wheat. The texture I have found for me it's a oatmeal swap or oatmeal alternative, and it's very mild when it comes to your digestion system. So it's really more of a healthy. It gives you all of the nutrients and benefits without the inflammation, I guess is the simplest way I can explain it. It's high in protein. It delivers about almost 10 grams of protein per cooked cup, which is roughly about 30 to 40% higher than the standard modern wheat. It has over 7 grams of fiber per cooked cup. It's loaded with magnesium, zinc, iron, vitamin E, and selenium, which are all essential vitamin and minerals that are needed for your body to be able to function at its highest form. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about ancient grains in first century versus the ancient grains that are currently utilized in the earth today, in today's modern society. So if you have any experience with any of these that you want to share, you can drop them in the comments, or you can email me. I would love to hear about your experience. I hope that this have served you in some way, whether it's enlightening, it was a teachable moment for you. I hope that you were able to get something beneficial from the lesson today. And I would love to hear about your experience. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope that you will continue to be a part of this community. Every last Thursday of the month, there is a new episode that is released and uploaded. Hope that you would like, share, tell someone about it, and that they would join and become part of the community. I appreciate your time. Thank you again for tuning in, and I hope that this was the hug that you needed. God bless.